Game engines aren't the problem. You are. Great works of art have been made in any medium, okay? Canvas, stone, toilet paper probably. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Last Supper on what is essentially egg yolk, on like a concrete wall. So like some of these people, their like faces have been shitty just because the wall has been torn. It's withered over time, right? But that doesn't stop this painting from being incredible. There's so much sacred geometry and hidden meaning in this painting. You can study it for like years. All of this stuff combines to just make it feel significant. It has weight to it. You know what I'm saying? Like this ship was made with a coffee stain. I mean, just look at this. It's beautiful. But art isn't just about colors on a flat surface. I think there are artistic actions. You know, if you haven't seen Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix, a few of them are pretty good, and Zima Blue is one of the episodes that are really good. In Zima Blue, an artist, a fictional artist, creates these giant blue squares all around the solar system as art, right? This gigantic panel, like the size of Giza, is the pyramids. Just something about this is kind of beautiful. These things called strand beasts are walking contraptions made out of yellow plastic tube. And they look alive. They look like creatures almost. And they're powered by wind. There's no electricity. It's just kind of moving naturally on its own. I can't even explain how this makes me feel. It looks like an alien creature, you know? I mean, this one isn't wind powered. I think there's little valves and stuff, but it's so freaky and interesting. Like, this is an artistic action, right? There's no colors on a surface, but this is definitely still art. My point is, art is more than the quality of the medium it's made in. There's some kind of artistic spirit which can be embodied anywhere at any time, like a spirit of the artist. In the context of making games, game engines is your medium. You know, it doesn't matter if your game engine medium is like a shitty TI-84 graphing calculator, right? You can still have this artistic spirit which transcends mediums, really. Like, if The Last Supper was made on like apple skin, or just something really impermanent and stupid to spend a year making a painting on, and it would wither away in like a week, it would still have been beautiful. Now, you could say your choice of engine matters a lot if you care about the art you make surviving for long periods of time, and that I would really agree with, you know. If Leonardo da Vinci used some kind of more permanent ink or something and didn't paint it on a wall, then we would still have the full picture here, and it wouldn't have been eroded as much by time. But that doesn't stop the art from being incredible. Now, what is the artistic spirit? So this is a diagram from Jungian psychology. He had this model of the self where you are kind of a mediator between your darker parts that you want to keep hidden, called the shadow, and your kind of ego and persona, which you project out into the world. Like, hey, I am Steve, and this is who I am, and I want to do this and this. And that's like your persona and your ego, your personality. But your shadow is kind of like your more evil intents that you want to keep hidden because they're ugly. You're ugly on the inside. Now, I don't actually think that this is accurate because of one reason. Anything observed isn't you. Like, if I look at my hand, right, I know that my hand isn't me because I can observe it. Anything that I can observe and perceive is separate from me. It's not me. You might say it's part of my body, which is me, but I'm talking about me, like the innermost part, not everything that could be considered me, like my hand. You know, my hand is kind of like this pen. I can hold it out and understand it as separate from me. If my hand was severed from me, I would still exist. Now, I would argue that because you can observe yourself as separate from you, because you can perceive yourself, you can imagine still existing without yourself. You would just be some kind of like awareness, right? Just whatever that you can't observe is you. You know, so you can observe your thoughts, your feelings, your preferences, whether or not you like broccoli, whether or not you like going for long walks. All of these things you can perceive, just like bubbling around in your mind. Like, all of this stuff isn't you. Your whole personality is just kind of something you picked up as a response to your environment and upbringing to help you survive. Like, whether or not you like football, whether or not you think things are based or cringe, right? These things can all be observed as separate from you. And that's why they aren't you. And that's why I think that this model is wrong in a subtle way. I am going to call this like idea that you are a person and that you are trying to accomplish some things and that you have preferences and dislikes. And it's like, I like the taste of eggs. I like the taste of cookie dough. All of these things is part of your ego, your conception of yourself as a person in the world that wants things and dislikes things. You know, this is all part of your ego. This is a different definition than is used here, right? I'm using ego to refer to kind of all of this almost. And this ego is ultimately rooted in your fear of death, or just kind of your want to survive. Like if you notice very carefully, right? Like if you're talking to somebody and you're naturally responding how you normally would, you're kind of pulling responses from a bank of like, who would somebody who is me, what would they say in response to what I just heard? Like somebody says, hey, you look nice. The ego responds out loud, thanks, and then tells you compliments are weird. That was a weird response, or whatever your ego tells you is like what that is. You probably just accept this as you, but I'm saying that this is obviously wrong because you can observe this happening. It's not you. It's something that's just been being fed to you right now. Your inner dialogue and your thoughts aren't you. It's part of your ego is ultimately about survival. It's not bad, right? It's not good or bad. It's just rooted in survival. It's in your instinct to be well and coexist with the humans in your environment so you don't get lost. Right? Coexisting with the people around you is critical to survival, which is why I'm saying that it makes sense that ego is about survival. The artistic spirit exists outside of this ego. You know, it's some kind of much bigger thing outside of this ego. This ego. And it's something that, it's a mode of existence which you can exist in, just as an observer. You can observe these parts of reality and your perception that is unrelated to your ego or self-preservation. Let me explain what I mean for a second. So you look at this image of a coffee shop, right? Here's what the ego sees. It sees people. You know, the ego says, how am I going to talk to them? I need to look good in front of them. The ego also sees like beans, you know, it sees the menu, stuff to eat. It's like, ooh, I want to eat. I want to survive. I want to keep you fed. You should make sure to have money so you can afford the things that are there. And if you don't have money, I'm going to make you feel bad. You're bad. You're bad. This is all stuff that's just part of your ego. It's a tool you evolved to help survive. Now there's something apart from this. The artistic spirit that exists beyond the ego. The artistic spirit can just notice things about reality, right? Like, hey, the way all of these lights are lined up kind of looks just like a straight, even uniform line. You know, that kind of contrasts with this line in a neat way. Now, of course, whoever took this photo dived into this artistic spirit a little bit to see these things, not even on a conscious level, but just on an unconscious level. And that's why this photo kind of looks pleasing, because it's like, hey, these two kind of dots here, they kind of look like smiley faces or something. This is very related to like creative thinking. But a lot of creative thinking or imagining things is also rooted in ego, which again is not a bad thing, right? Ego is very helpful for survival. Like if you weren't thinking about ego all the time, people would probably, you know, kind of hate you and you couldn't exist in modern society. But without the ego, you see these things that you can tap into. You perceive things that are just important on a fundamental level to human beings in general. And that's how good art is made. Engaging in this mode of existence that isn't about keeping you alive is when you enter a flow state, a disembodied flow state. This is where the artistic spirit is, right? It's in this place where you're not thinking about your survival or your inevitable death, or at least that's not a thing that's weighing over you that you must process. This is why good ideas are had like in the shower, for example, right? In the shower, you kind of have nothing to do. There's no entertainment, right? Your ego is not necessary because there's no people, food, or things to keep you surviving other than maybe the hot water. But like once that's dealt with, you just exist in this aimless state without purpose kind of for a second. You're just waiting until you're clean. Salvador Dali was a very creative person. And just something about his paintings kind of speaks to you on some level that can't really be described with words. That's why he made a painting, because you can't say this with words. This feeling almost. And he noticed, he developed a technique for causing this artistic spirit, for causing him to exist in this mode. Not just of thinking, it's not a mode of thinking. It's a mode that transcends thought, where you gain a small glimpse into this otherworldly place, and you see the patterns that are behind the reality you're experiencing, without biasing your perceptions towards keeping you alive, which is what your ego normally does. Anyway, Salvador Dali, he would sit down in his chair like this, and he would start to fall asleep. Close his eyes, start getting ready to take a nap, but with one key thing. He would be holding a coin in his hand. And then right as soon as he was about to fall asleep, his hand would relax. The coin would fall onto a metal tray. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm not fucking with you. A metal tray would fall into a metal tray, and it would go clink. He would wake up like, oh shit, I'm Salvador Dali. It's time to make trippy paintings with melting clocks. And by letting himself fall asleep for this moment, he would gain a burst of creativity and enter this state without a self temporarily. And he would see the truth almost. Anyways, this is all I got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. and hit that bell for notifications whenever I make videos about the game I'm making or more stuff like this in general.